heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, the Legends Series, and I am very excited for our guest we've got on with us today. He's a 2-time state champion already. He's only been, I say only, he's turning into an old head. He's only been a head coach for 10 years. He's averaging only about 12.8 wins a season. He's won twice as a head coach. Coach Joey King, Carrollton High School, thanks for being on with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, Coach, tell everybody where you actually went to high school.
Yeah, I'm from Cedartown, Georgia. Grew up in Cedartown and played ball at Cedartown High School.
Well, did you just play football or were you a multi-sport athlete?
No, yeah, I played football, basketball, and baseball from, I don't know, I guess the time I could walk. You know, I've had a ball in my hand. I was a knucklehead, and my mama, I lived in Cedartown. My mama worked in Atlanta. So really growing up, kind of the only time I saw her was when it was dark outside. She'd drop me off early in the morning and pick me up late in the evening. So I played ball to stay out of trouble.
So who was your high school coach? Like your high school football coach?
Yeah. I played for John Hill at Cedartown. We had a pretty good little run there. I took over the starting job from a quarterback standpoint about halfway through my sophomore season. Funny story about that. My first varsity start as a starting quarterback was against Carrollton. They were number one in the state. Or that was the year they won the state championship. Excuse me. I don't know if they were number one yet. But they ended up winning the state championship in '98, and my first start was against those guys.
Well, that's getting thrown in the fire, I would say.
Got thrown in the fire. Yeah, we started off with a bang. You know, we jumped up on them, I think 20-0, and then shortly thereafter it was the Reggie Brown show. So we didn't win that one, but that was the start of my career as a starting quarterback.
Well, that's a good way to start. So you got to go play college ball.
Yeah, I did. I was very, very fortunate to be able to go do that. I played college ball at Carson Newman. It was Carson Newman College then. It's Carson Newman University now, but Carson Newman College in Jefferson City, Tennessee, and had a good time up there. You know, knew I wanted to be a coach, so the opportunity to go and play for Coach Ken Sparks was a great experience for a lot of us. There's a lot of Carson Newman guys in the coaching fraternity, so having the ability to go up there and play for him, and met my wife up there, and then I got into college coaching shortly thereafter before jumping into high school.
So did you started out as a GA there, and
well, yeah. So I actually, I finished playing, and as much as I love Coach Sparks, I told him I wanted to, stay on the GA, and he encouraged me to go somewhere else. He must not have loved me as much as I loved him, but no, I say that in kidding. He tried to share a little bit of insight, just an encouragement to go and learn another system. We ran the split back veer in college, and he encouraged me to try to get my foot in the door somewhere else, and interviewed for a couple of jobs, and was actually on the way to take a graduate assistant / full-time / whatever else it was at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia, Mississippi. I was between Nashville and Memphis, and Jack Crow called me at Jacksonville State University. and I ended up taking a job. Jimmy Fuller was the AD down there, and I ended up taking a job at Jacksonville State instead of Northwest Mississippi.
So how long did you stay there?
I was there for a year. I was a director of football operations, and I worked with the receivers. I wasn't real fired up about the DFO job, but Jack convinced me that if I ever wanted to be a head coach, that the administrative side of it and the fundraising stuff that we were responsible for would really help me. It turned out he knew what he was talking about, because all that stuff was definitely beneficial. I'm in a position that I'm in now, but I stayed there for a year, and then we had some student loans we had to get paid off, so we decided to get into high school teaching and coaching. As a GA, that was back when we were staying up till 3:00 in the morning putting these VHS tapes in and eating wings, trying to get it all figured out. Some of these guys now, it's a little bit more luxurious. But I did that for a year, and then took my first teaching and coaching job at Sonoraville High School. I was with Chuck King and those guys up there. Started the program, had the first win in varsity history at Sonoraville High School. Did that for 1 year, and then I took a job at Carrollton after that. Coach Teague called me and asked me if I was interested. Actually, Jack Crow was the one that, it was funny how all these circles kind of run together. I think Coach Teague saw Coach Crow, I don't know, maybe at a piano bar in Memphis or something, and was asking about quarterbacks coaches, and Coach Crow brought my name up. And then Tony Lundy actually was one of my high school coaches, had a big impact on my life. Tony Lundy was recruiting. He was at the offensive coordinator at Shorter University, and he was recruiting and went through Carrollton, and Coach Teague asked him about a quarterbacks coach, and he recommended me as well. So he called me down and interviewed, and I took the quarterback's job at Carrollton in 2008.
2008 Carrollton, that was a good place to be back then. Well, I mean, it still is, but I mean,
it is
for a young coach. That's a great place to get started.
No doubt. Yeah, I was at Sonoraville for a year, and I ended up interviewing and landing a job with Coach Teague at Carrollton. I was the quarterbacks coach the 2008, 2009 season, and then in 2010 I became the offensive coordinator. We were running the wing tee, getting the coaching that of Coach Teague was the head coach, and we had to run exactly what he wanted run, and he was a wing guy, wanted to run the football. And it fit us well at Carrollton at the time, so we ran the wing, and we played for the state championship in 2010 and 2013. We fell short both of those years. Sandy Creek beat us in 2010, and then Griffin beat us in 2013. And then after that season, Coach Teague decided he was retiring, and I tried to get the head job there at the time, and came in second for it. So then I was, trying to find a job, and didn't really know where we were going to go or what we were going to do. Kind of looking all over the state, had a couple of opportunities, and then the Cartersville job just kind of presented itself all of a sudden. I was trying to do a lot of stuff on my own, and we were praying, trying to get things figured out. And I really didn't think I had a shot to get the Cartersville job. And Jay Floyd called me and was like, "Hey, you need to interview for this Cartersville job." And I was like, "Well, I tried. I didn't even get a call back. I think they've already got the 10 guys that they're interviewing." And I think Jay might have busted up in on the interview committee and told them that they needed to add one more to the list. And I actually ended up getting an interview. I might have been the 11th of the 10 that they were going to interview, but got an interview and ended up landing that job and, getting my first head coaching job.
So what was it like? We always talk about how you really ain't ready. You think you are, but you're ready from an X's and O's standpoint, but all the other stuff that comes in, how hard was it, taking over a program like Cartersville for your first head coaching job?
Well, I felt like I was ready for it. Being under Coach Teague for the 6 years that I was at Carrollton, he was a great mentor for me, from the regards of, all the off the field stuff, the organization, fundraising, how to structure and run a program. So I had been preparing, for about the 4 years that I was a coordinator. In the off season, I would go by every week, every planning period. I was down there and trying to, figure out how to be a head coach. Had a couple of opportunities to present themselves, but was patient in it because I had a really good job at Carrollton. And then, when all of a sudden I didn't have to be patient anymore because I wasn't going to have a job. It ended up working itself out. So I think I was ready for it. I mean, I'm sure there's some boneheaded decisions I probably made in that first year as a head coach. It's a different story when you go from, making suggestions to the decisions. That's a different deal, because everything falls back on you. But I feel like I was ready. One of the things that I remember, I called a bunch of guys that were head coaches, that I respected, and just kind of asked them, "Hey, look, I'm about to take this deal. What's something that you could go back and tell your young self, your first year or two as being a head coach?" And the majority of them said, obviously, if you have the opportunity to hire good staff and delegate. Don't micromanage and or work on doing everything yourself, because you'll never be as good as you can be. Hire good people and trust them to do their jobs, and that's something that I've taken to this day. We've been successful. We've had a good run. But we've also had a lot of really, really good coaches and really, really good players. I try to say my job is just not to mess it up every day.
Yeah, I talked with Chris Parker the other day, and we were just talking about things we would tell younger coaches is getting a good program as a young coach. Like you were at Snorville, and then you were able to go to Carrollton, and then bide your time.
Right.
Be patient, work. And then it turns into you don't have to take one of those jobs for your first head coaching job. You could be patient, and then, now granted, you said you had to take one, but you get your first head coaching job is Cartersville. It's not, a struggling place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important. Especially a lot of the young guys that I see coming out now that send me, resumes. They want they want the PE job, and they want a coordinator title quick, and just getting in a good program and being willing to learn and pay your dues is I ain't gonna say it's a lost art, but I think it paid dividends for me down the road, and I'm trying to encourage our guys. We got a couple of young coaches on staff that have been offered a couple other jobs here this job cycle. And I got a text message today from one of my guys, and he was like, "Coach, I'm gonna turn them all down and continue the growth opportunity that we have here." I think that's smart, because I think they can end up parlaying it into a better job down the road if they'll stay and continue to learn and take in everything that we have to offer. I took that job at Carrollton. I left Sonoraville. Again, I was around great people and had a great teaching job during the day, and it was I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was a good setup. And I go to Carrollton to coach the quarterbacks, and I'm at New Horizons Alternative School teaching English and history. And it ain't that's when it wasn't just throw them in there and put them on the computer. I had to have key questions and essential questions and standards posted for every class that I was teaching, and a couple of classes going on at the same time. I carried a whole big box of books home to just try to stay a day ahead of the kids, but it was beneficial because I was around Coach Teague and the Carrollton program and community, and I was learning every day. And then once it was time to, take that next step, it really prepared me for that.
So you get to Cartersville, and how many years were you there as the head coach before y'all won the first state championship?
Yeah, so my first year at Cartersville, we went 12-2. We got beat in the semifinals. Buford beat us in the semifinals. And then, so that would have been the 2014 season. And then the 2015 season, we actually beat Buford in the state championship game and won our first state championship there.
So what was that like?
Oh, it was crazy. At the time, Cartersville and Buford had played a couple of times in the playoffs, and Buford was in there. I say heyday. They were rolling. They'd won or played for 10 out of the last 10 state championships. And we had a really, really good defense. We had a good offense, but our defense was really good that year. And we shut them out. We ended up winning 10-0 in the state championship game. And just the way that it ignited that community and brought everybody together, it was a special year. I'm glad that we won the state championship, and it was great, but at the end of the day, they still cut that scoreboard off. And, I can remember, I tell people this story all the time. If you're just coaching for the championships and the wins, you're going to let yourself down. I stood on that stage, and I thought, man, look, I'm going to look up at this thing and take it all in. and they were getting ready for another game after us. I can't remember who played. All I remember is looking at the scoreboard and seeing them zero it out just as quick as we'd won it. They zeroed that thing out. And I tell people all the time, these trophies, they collect dust. I've never, been one of these guys to wear these state championship rings around. We started working on the next one the next week. But the memories and the lives that are impacted and the stories that'll be told, for the rest of a lot of people's lives, that's the fun part. If you just get caught up on winning it, that's not really what it's all about.
Well, and then you start the next year and you repeat.
We did.
And it's a totally different team. I mean, it's not the same.
Totally different. Yeah, defense was different. We were probably we were still really, really good on defense. Offense kind of really took off that year. You graduate kids, and then you have some kids come up through the program, and it's their turn. And we ended up having another a 15-0 year. There was a while there. I think we won. I can't remember the exact number, 41, 42 games in a row. And you don't really. Everybody asks me, how does it feel? And at the time, you don't feel anything. You focus on the next one. And it's kind of cliche. Coaches talk about focus on just going 1-0. Well, we did that a whole bunch of weeks. And that was really our focus. It wasn't, we've won this many games or we've won this many titles. It was, we're going to show up to work on Monday and put our hard hat on and, look up at the end of the week and hope we won the game. And then we're going to focus on doing that again. And our kids embraced that every day in the weight room and at practice. And it was a special run for sure.
So I imagine at this point in time, you're starting to develop your staff. You're starting to get your core guys that would be with you over the years and building that.
Yeah, we did. I've always said the who is a whole lot more important than the what. And in coaching, you're only as good as the guys that you surround yourself with. And, I took the job at Cartersville. My first hire was Connor Foster. We were together at Carrollton. He had only been there with us for 1 year, even though I was at Carrollton for 6. He was just there with us that 2013 season. And straight out of the gate, he was our DB's coach, but straight out of the gate, I knew he was going to, he was a really talented coach, had a good head for the game, and was great with the kids. So when I took the Cartersville job, Cartersville was actually home for him. That's where he played high school football and was on that 99 state championship team. And, when I had the opportunity to go back, he was the first call. And that's a hard decision to make, the decision to go back home. So he spent a lot of time in prayer and talking with a lot of people. And I'd say it's worked out pretty good for him and his family too. So he took the job with us as a defensive coordinator, and he's still there now as the head football coach and has done an outstanding job. But the rest of our staff was just as important, in those runs. And I had Coach Reggie Perkins with me, who ended up coming down here to Carrollton. Coach Dusty Phillips was with us, and a lot of other guys that have gone on and taken some head jobs and some coordinator roles. But each and every one of them hold a special place in my heart, just from the memories and the brotherhood that's developed through coaching together.
So winning 2 back-to-back and going on that run with all the wins and everything, like you said, they zero them out.
Yeah.
And you come back to third year and you're like, well, yeah. we've done it twice.
That's it. Yeah. So that's the question everybody, people ask crazy questions. Coach, are we going to win it this year? Well, shoot, there's a lot of variables in there. I'm gonna say we're gonna try every year. That's everybody's goal when they start this thing. But there's a ton of variables. So I think maybe even on the stand, I don't remember if it was John Nelson or one of the GPB guys or whatever. Coach, are we going to three-peat? It's right after we won the second one. That's the immediate question.
I don't know.
Well, I dang sure would like to. I mean, but there's a lot that goes into it. And that year, I mean, we had a huge senior class and very talented team. And I mean, I don't know that we had much of a challenge at all throughout the year. And then we got upset in the second round to the Blessed Trinity, and they went on a run after that. I think they won 3 in a row, after that, and we got upset, and that was it. And, that was Trevor Lawrence's senior year, great senior class. I think that year we graduated, that would have been the 2016 season. After that, we graduated 18 of 22 starters, our kicker, our long snapper, probably our water boy. We graduated a lot of them. We only had 2 coming back. And then one of my favorite seasons was the 2018 season there. we played for a state championship that year, and everybody was like, oh, Cartersville's graduated Trevor and everybody else, 18 to 22 starters. And we had a bunch of guys that really didn't have any business being out there. But they bought in, they believed in the system, they believed in each other. A bunch of guys that had fought their tails off, their whole career, looking forward to the opportunity to play for Cartersville. And then we ended up playing for a state championship. We fell a little short there, but that was one of the most fun coaching seasons that we've ever had, was that year.
Well, and you've got, coaches know you have such a talent that you had in Trevor Lawrence. Everybody just wants to talk about Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
Well, good God, you graduated 18 out of 22. He wasn't throwing it to himself. He wasn't blocking he wasn't blocking for himself. He wasn't out there playing defense. I mean, you had other players that were pretty doggone good too.
Yeah, we did, and man, great kids too. That it makes it easy as a coach when your best players and your hardest, are your hardest workers. And to Trevor's credit, Trevor and a handful of those other guys that you're talking about, they were talented players, but they were also your hardest workers and your best leaders. And that was a big contributing factor to our success there.
Well, and coming back that next year when everybody's kind of written they graduated, Mr. World quarterback, and, they whatever, they're done. And to make that kind of run just speaks to the leadership and the program that you have in place. And like you say, the buy-in of the kids. I mean, because ultimately it's the kids play. I mean, all we can do is put them in a position to be successful and hope they get it done, and they did. I mean, you came up a little short, but still, that's a heck of a 4-year run, 5-year run, really. I mean,
it was. You don't. I say you don't. Maybe some people do, but I had a hard time, and I have to stop every now and then still to kind of appreciate the run that it is while it's happening. Looking back on it now, man, but while you're in it, you don't really appreciate and value, how good it is until it's over, and then you're like, man, that was a special deal, So now I'm probably, as a little bit older coach, I'm probably more apt to stop and to remind our guys, hey, look, let's take a moment and take this thing in. Everybody doesn't get to do this. Everybody doesn't experience this type of success. So, our number one core value in our program at Carrollton is gratitude. So let's take a moment and be grateful for this opportunity. Because we know that everybody doesn't have those same opportunities that we've been fortunate enough to have.
So when did you leave Cartersville?
It was after that 2018 season. I'd had a couple of college opportunities present themselves, and it was kind of something that we'd always, me and my wife had always kind of thought about. And after that season, both of us kind of had a feeling that God had something in store for us. And I remember praying with her, God, if you have something that you want for us, show us and, point us to it. We'll try to be as obedient as we can. If not, we're going to keep rocking and rolling here. We're in a great place. We love it. Cartersville, the system was in place. The support was great and everything was great. And then all of a sudden this opportunity came up at Coastal Carolina. Jamie Chadwell got promoted to the head coaching job. And that vacated a spot on the offensive side of the ball because he was the offensive coordinator. And he called me and was like, hey, look, I got a job on my staff. And it's yours if you want it. And I said, let me talk with my wife and figure it out. And I talked with her, and we were interested in doing that. And I called Jamie back. I think it may have been on a Thursday or a Friday, and said, when do you need me? And it was about that same time the next week. So I packed my truck up and first we prayed about it, made sure that was the right place. In Genesis, maybe the 12th chapter, it says God told Abraham to go, and then he would show him. We had a lot of questions. I went into that deal at Coastal Carolina not exactly knowing where I was going to live. I just had my truck packed down with all my clothes, and I drove to Myrtle Beach, not knowing where I was even going to stay. But trusting that God was going to provide, and He had His hand in it, and ended up, staying there for a year and having a great time with that staff. I coached the receivers. That was different. It was a little bit of a change going from, being the head coach back down to the position room. So I really enjoyed having my group of guys. We grew close, and I got to pour into those young men and teach them, teach them the game, but also teach them about life and have a little bit more of a connection as that position coach than I did as a head coach.
So 1 year in college was about all you were
Well, yeah,
interested
I
in.
got two. Yeah, I ended up doing two. So from Coastal Carolina, we had a good year. We didn't have a great year. We were one win short of a bowl appearance, but we won our last game. I think we played Troy and went for two instead of kicking for the tie. We were at home, so we went for two, and I ended up winning the ball game. And then 10 minutes later, you're in the locker room, and Jamie comes in there and he's like, "Hey, great year, guys. Good job. First year as a head coach." He said, "I need everybody to meet me, in the staff office in about 10 minutes." And he just turns and walks out. And we're like, "Why are we having a staff meeting?" So there was some staff turnover. I was good. Actually, had a really good end of the year review with him. And so I was committed to staying another year. And then over Christmas break, Jeff Scott, who was the offensive coordinator at Clemson, he got the South Florida job. And he called me. I was actually on my way to my Uncle Joe's house. My uncle's Joe Kynes. And I was driving to Tuscaloosa to have family Christmas with my Uncle Joe and the rest of the family. And Jeff Scott calls me and said, "Hey, I just got this job at the University of South Florida. I need a tight ends coach. Are you interested?" And I said, "Well, Coach, I'm kind of happy where we're at Coastal, but it ended up being a good opportunity and a good financial jump to take the job in Tampa." So we went down there and was on Jeff Scott's first staff at the University of South Florida.
How was South Florida?
It was great. My two coaching stops were at Myrtle Beach and Tampa. Everybody. So that's why I said the good Lord blessed us with two great places to live. We didn't have to go to South Dakota or Wyoming or anywhere cold like that. We lived at two different beach spots, and Tampa is beautiful. I don't know if any of these listeners have spent some time down there, but it's a beautiful city. The weather was fantastic. I got to coach the tight ends, and again had another great position room. Got to work under Charlie Weiss Jr., who was our offensive coordinator. So between Jeff Scott, Charlie Weiss Jr., and then Jamie Chadwell is a great offensive mind at Coastal Carolina. To be a part of their offensive system really helped me grow as a coach too. But at the end of our first season at South Florida, I got moved from tight ends to receivers and was given the title passing game coordinator. And that day, I got a call from Carrollton, and they asked me if I was interested, and I told them no. I had just got a promotion and was probably going to stay down there. And then they just kind of asked me if I was willing to at least hear them out, and I said yes. And they came to Tampa the next day, and I went and met with our current superintendent, Dr. Albertus, and kind of listened to his vision a little bit about Carrollton. And, my family was drawn back here. One of the reasons is because it is a great community. Living in Myrtle Beach, then living in Tampa, those are great cities, but we missed the Cartersville aspect, the Carrollton aspect, that community. Carrollton on a Friday night is still small town USA, where everybody's shutting down things to get to the game, and all the little kids are lining the street at the homecoming parade, and just to be a part of a community again was one of the reasons that we came back here.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference, especially when you got little ones that you're trying to raise up. And
that's right.
Get your church family and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'm not saying they don't have that. You know what I mean? It's just different when you're in a smaller place, and
without question,
you see people at the grocery store and at the gas station, things like that. So you head back to. So what was that? COVID year?
That was the year after COVID. So I was in Tampa for COVID year. Again, not a bad place for the world to shut down.
Yeah.
So it was really, aside from COVID and the impacts of that, it was a great year for our family. We grew closer together. I worked out of my home office and Zoomed with what felt like about every coach in the country. So the year after COVID, the 2021 season was our first year back in Carrollton.
And has hit the ground running and has had, what is it now, 4 great years so far?
Yeah, it's been 4. It's crazy. The first year I was hoping it was going to go exactly like Cartersville. So we go 12-2, We go 12-2 my first year here and get beat in the semifinals by Buford. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Next year, we're going to win this whole thing. Yeah. And I'll be dang if we didn't end up playing for it. We went 14-1, didn't quite go 15-0. We went 14-1 and got beat by Mill Creek in the state championship game. And man, it was crazy. Again, I thought we had some kids. A lot of people counted us out. I don't even know if we were in the. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to rankings, but we weren't even mentioned in the preseason top 15. We ended up, the kids bought in and believed, and we played for a state title after our second year here. And then the third year here, we got beat in the third round by a very talented Walton team. And then last year we played for a state title again and got beat by Grayson. But it's been a great 4 years. The community's great, but our kids have bought in and believe in the culture, and that kind of drives and facilitates everything else.
So you said your number one core value is gratitude. What are some of the other core values that you instill in the kids at Carrollton?
Yeah, one of the things we say is it takes guts to be a Trojan. We want gritty kids, but guts for us stands for gratitude, unity, toughness, and sacrifice. And so those are every decision that we make from a program standpoint hinges on those core values. I spoke at a clinic in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not a huge acronym guy. There's some guys that have acronyms all over the facility, but none of the kids can really tell you what they mean. Our kids know our core values; they can communicate that to you. And again, everything that we do from a program standpoint hinges on those. If there's ever a conflict or something that doesn't match up to those, we need to change our core values or address that conflict. But everything that we do is about guts.
Well, was it easier for you coming back to Carrollton, do you think, having been there as an assistant, kind of knowing the history and the traditions of the program, to take over as the head coach than it would have been if you were just from somewhere else?
I do. I really do. You're there and you kind of, Carrollton, it's a special place, but there is a lot of pressure. The stakes are high. And people, it was funny coming back. People said, "Coach, are you ready for the pressure and the expectations?" I was, one, I was here before, but two, it's not, the expectation isn't to win a state championship every year. It's to put as good of a product on that field as you can put. Now, and if you fall short, you ain't gonna be here very long. But to put a great product on the field, obviously they want you to win, but then you have to embrace this community and the tradition that exists here. And if you do those things, Carrollton will love you back. And that's something that we try to teach our guys. I talk about gratitude. We do a ton of community service projects. We try to make it to where it's not about us. I talk about Trojans past, present, and future, and we make sure that we show our gratitude to those that came before us, and we're going to leave this thing right for those that are coming after us.
Well, I know you opened up y'all's facility for our guys, and we came up for a playoff game, and we appreciated that. And it was cool for our kids to get to see, like, a big time, really nice, bunch of country kids coming up to see that. And just, you didn't have to do that. You could have been like, nah, we got stuff going on. Because there's always something going on, like the campus of Carrollton, the schools, city schools. There was a crowd. There was some kind of, that day there was a little kids long distance, like cross country meet or something.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's busy. It's definitely a happening place. The spring's crazy busy. But anytime coaches reach out, one, there's a connection there. There's the fraternity of coaches. I want to try to help guys out. And I never know when I'll be in a situation or be in a place where I may need to call and ask a favor too. So that's kind of our philosophy from an athletic department standpoint. If we can help somebody out, we're for sure going to do that, because we've had to walk through and we've had to go places before too. So I think in coaching, that's just good business, Well,
who are some of the guys or kids you've coached over the years that were just, whether you coached them or you just saw them because you've seen elite competition, you've coached some of the elites that you've really enjoyed coaching? Besides Trevor Lawrence, that you've just seen, you've been like, good God, that kid's something serious.
Yeah, obviously Trevor. Outside of Trevor, some of my, the ones that I really enjoyed, Miller Forrestall was one of my favorite kids to have coached. So Miller was our starting quarterback. I say starting quarterback. He was our older quarterback at Cartersville when I got there. He was a rising junior, and Trevor was a rising freshman. and they were competing for the job. And we get about, I'm rolling them by every 2 series as we started the season off this year. And about by game 3, Miller comes in and just kind of like, hey, coach, give me an evaluation. We're still rolling. Like, what do you think? What do you think I project as? Am I going to be the starter? Am I going to be a bench warmer? What are we going to do? And I said, well, what do you think? And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, well, I'm in here to ask you what you think. And I said, well, what do you think? And he said, I can't make the plays this kid's making, and I can see that. And I'm like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And he was like, well, you're the coach. What do you think? And I said, well, I think you'd make a great tight end. And he just kind of turns his head a little bit, and he's like, I'm going to have to gain some weight. And I said, yeah, you're going to have to gain some weight. But he committed to doing that. This kid, he would walk around. He'd take a loaf of bread in the morning and make every other piece have peanut butter between it. And before class, he was eating a peanut butter sandwich. And after class, he was eating a peanut butter sandwich. And ended up becoming a really good tight end. And I tell you a funny story about Miller. I can't say word for word everything that he said, but he had some people recruiting him, and we were going to, I think we were at the University of Georgia at their 7-on-7 camp, and these coaches have been following us around all day long. They're watching Miller, trying to figure out if they're going to offer him or not. Well, I think we got beat in the championship at the Georgia 7-on-7. I think Dorman High School actually beat us in the championship out of South Carolina. But anyhow, we're talking to the coaches before we leave, and they invite Miller back to the camp the next day. They said, Miller, we got a senior camp tomorrow. We'd love for you to come. And Miller's like, Coach, why do I need to come to this camp? Y'all have followed me around the entire day, and you've watched. Is there anything that you're going to see tomorrow? And this is a high school kid saying this. Is there anything that you're going to see tomorrow that you didn't see today? And they just kind of turned and looked a little funny. And Miller said, I tell you what I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to Alabama's camp tomorrow. And after the camp, Nick Saban's going to offer me a scholarship in his office. And then in 2020 or 2019, I can't remember the exact wordage he used. He said, but we're going to come back over here and we're going to kick your butt. And he turned around and walked off. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, we're not going to speak to adults like that. And the Georgia coaches were great. They're like, Coach, that's unbelievable. Hey, no hard feelings. Just let him go. And the next day, my phone rings about 2:00, and it's Miller. And he says, hey, Coach, you'll never guess where I'm sitting. And I said, well, I got a feeling. He said, I'm sitting in Coach Saban's office. They just offered me a scholarship to the University of Alabama, and I'm committed to the University of Alabama.
Oh, that's
and I was
awesome.
like, man, and today, if that would have happened and I'd have told him, he's not the starting quarterback, the majority of kids, they're going to go somewhere else and find something else to do. And he was like, look, I love this place. I love this team. How can we make it work? And it ended up working out pretty good for him too. So he's definitely one of those special ones. He's still playing. He's with the Rams right now, out in LA, and doing a great job.
That's cool. I mean, there's just so many other kids. People lock into the one,
yeah,
and they don't realize you had a heap, but you had other kids that could play.
No question. I could tell story after story after story, kid after kid after kid. As I'm sitting here thinking about some of these Cartersville kids and some that we've had here at Carrollton. I mean, it's my brain and my heart are full of kids that have impacted me and made me a better coach. But just to see how they, attack the day each and every day. Some of them are, Xavier Coaxum's a DB that we had at Cartersville that was, he was probably 5'4" on his best day. And I'm coming in to film, with our staff every Sunday, trying to figure out how we can fire this kid. We got a little peanut out there playing in the secondary, and we got a DB going to Iowa and one going to Minnesota and one, this another Division I kid. And then we got this little 5'4" corner, but we can't get him off the field. He wouldn't let us because he was such a good player, and he played the right way, and he always knew what to do. And he was a great kid, but physically, I'm like, we got to find somebody else. But that joker, he showed up every day, and height was not an issue for him. You couldn't tell him he was 5'4". He played like he was 6'3". So there's story after story after story about all these kids.
And then you go, getting to do the college deal, that was probably pretty cool too, because it's a totally different game and a totally different universe where, it's more of a business and their mentality is totally different. I mean, they're grown. They're not kids. I mean, we say they're kids, but they really aren't, especially now. I mean, they weren't when you were there, but now they're paying them You know,
Right.
they're not kids anymore, and they're thinking of this as a investment in what they're going to do for a living. And
Yeah, for
so it's
sure.
probably just a different, and it's trickling down, but it's just a different
It is.
mentality.
It is, and most of the kids, I won't say all of them, but most of the kids knew what they were there for from a college standpoint, knew what they were there for, and were completely bought into being as good of an athlete and football player as they could be. In high school, you got some of the guys that like to, you know, just ride and eat a sandwich and wear the jersey on Friday night, and make it through everything, that aren't going to play, probably not even going to play in high school. But those kids deserve your best just like the rest of them do. So that's probably one of the things in college that I miss, is just the seriousness of every athlete in the program. As a high school coach, you got some silliness that exists in there sometimes, because some of those kids aren't quite as dedicated to the game. But from a life standpoint, man, every one of them's valuable.
So who are some of the coaches over the years that you've competed against that you've just enjoyed the camaraderie and the friendships, and whether they ain't too many people got you, but that you beat them or whatever, that you just enjoy competing against?
I mean, some of the coaches that I think of are, Hal Lamb. Obviously, Coach Lamb's fantastic, great coach. I respect him and have looked up to him as a coach / mentor. I love John Small, that's in our region now at East Coweta. John played at West Georgia, and we have a lot of conversations over the years, and have competed. Jess Simpson, just kicked my butt one year, and we slipped up on them in the championship game that one year, but definitely had a lot of respect for him and for those guys at Buford. Tim McFarland is one that I never beat. They beat us twice at Blessed Trinity, 2 years in a row. But definitely have a ton of respect for him. He's a great man and a great coach now, working at Georgia Tech. So those are some of the guys that I immediately come to my mind.
And what are some things about the game, the high school game, that's changed, good, bad, or indifferent, over the years since when you were playing to now, that you like, don't like, or just things that have changed about it that stick out to you?
Well, I think there's a lot more opportunity for kids to develop outside of what we do just in our program and across the state. I think Georgia has kind of been a pioneer and a front runner in that, and you start to see the development of these kids, the advancement of the development of these kids that we have in the state. I think the coaching has really improved, just from a knowledge standpoint. I mean, these guys that are coaching, there's some really, really good coaches in this state too, along with some really good players. Obviously this NIL deal is different, and it's a new age. It's a new age of kid. But I think I told one of our coaches the other day, the things that are true, the lessons that this game teaches, regardless of what age it is, what area it is, those true lessons are still taught. That's the good thing about truth is always true. So using the game as an opportunity to correlate life, I think that's what it's all about. I think it's one of the things that I dislike is when kids get caught up in offers. I want offers, and there's so many people that are out there trying to sink their fangs into these kids, and for lack of a better term, trying to prostitute these kids to benefit themselves. And that side of the game that you see, I mean, there's some crooked people in this world, and that part really bothers me. The purity of the game is one of the reasons that I left college ball. I can remember sitting in a meeting and hearing a coach say, we're going to be recruiting high school kids agents before too long instead of the high school kid. And I'm like, not me. Y'all may do that, but not me. And so one of the reasons that I got back into high school until they get some things figured out was, just the purity of the game itself, the love of the game, and the lessons that it teaches and affords you. It builds young men when done the right way, and those are things that we still focus on in our program. We're gonna have a word of the week every week that relates to some type of character aspect that this game can teach you. And we talk about that stuff on a daily basis, so we don't get caught up in all the hype and all the outside noise.
Well, Coach, I'm so thankful for you being with us today, and I'm thankful that we have men like you that regardless of how successful you've been, you keep the main thing, and you pour into these kids and make character an important part of your program, the cornerstone of your program, and teaching these young men the valuable life lessons that the game can teach. And I, for one, appreciate you for that, and just thank you for being on with us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I had a lot of people pour into me. You know, I was, like I told you earlier, I was a knucklehead that needed some direction, and I'm so thankful for those coaches and mentors along the way that have poured into me, and I'm trying to pay it forward.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you.
Thanks a lot.